Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today, from McFarlane Toys, we are featuring the DC Superpowers Darkseid action figure. It's new for 22, it's Nouveau por 22, and it's Nuevo para 22. Alright, so I've already reviewed all the other figures in the first two waves. I've reviewed Superman over here, the Batman Who Laughs. This is probably the best figure I've reviewed so far. It's really cool. Batman, we've taken a look at him. John Stewart, and the Flash. These other figures, these are like figures from yesterday. These are like figures from the 80s and 90s. And they're kind of this here just for comparison. For example, this is the old Toy Biz DC Superheroes Plastic Man from like I think the late 80s or early 90s. We have a Toy Biz Aquaman, a couple of Kenner Batmans, and then I think a Toy Biz Robin. And that brings us to this guy. We have Darkseid. This guy is cool because even though if you go to your Walmart, this is probably all you'll see on the Superpowers shelves is this an infinite amount of Darkseids. This guy feels like you're getting the most bang for your buck. You know, for me, it's awesome that this guy costs the same as like Superman and Batman, but he's like twice the figure. It's a much heavier, meatier figure than everyone else. I'm so glad they didn't package him like in some sort of deluxe box and charge, you know, like $5 more. It's cool that a figure this big, you know, costs the same as a much smaller one. The box looks good. You know, this is a nice throwback to the old Kenner's Superpowers. Nice illustration over here. It's cool that we're getting modern Darkseid, you know, as opposed to the classic design. But in honesty, if they gave us the classic design, I wouldn't complain. Nice bio on the character right here. So if you're into like, you know, learning more about these characters, go ahead. You know, you can like memorize this and quiz people at Thanksgiving dinner and have like a trivia contest. We have Superman, Darkseid, Batman, Batwing, and Supermobile. I do have the Batwing, and I'll hopefully in the near future I'll review that. I kind of want the Supermobile just because as a little kid I had a small like Matchbox sized one, so I kind of want this, but I don't want to pay full price for it. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna wait till it's on clearance or if one day I'll just pull the trigger on it. We'll see. All right, let's get started. Take a look at Darkseid. Okay, one of the first things I've noticed about this figure is that the size of him. Like I said, he's much bigger than all the other figures. For example, here he is next to like the McFarlane Flash figure, and as you can see, he just dwarfs every other figure in the line. And it's a much bigger figure. It almost feels like the size of like an old 80s He-Man figure. Give me a second. Alright, so over here we have the Masters of the Universe Origins Leech figure. As you can see, I haven't reviewed this guy yet. I just got him like last week. Haven't had time to review him, but you know, height-wise, this guy is almost as tall as a Masters of the Universe Origins figure. So you are getting your money's worth with Darkseid. You know, this guy is really cool. It looks fantastic. The sculpting looks good. His head looks nice. His body armor looks awesome. They kind of give him that rocky texture on the exposed areas of his body, like his arms. Let's get into focus. Yeah, right there. You can kind of make out that rocky texture. His shoulder pads have... It's kind of weird because his shoulder pads have like... you know, it's like evident of like battle scarring and weathering because there's like cracking on here and battle damage. But then his chest armor is completely clean. It seems kind of odd. I remember as a kid growing up, I always got, not that I would get them confused, but Darkseid and Marvel Comics' Apocalypse, they always kind of felt like the same looking character. I mean, they're completely different, but I mean visually, if you just covered up their heads, their body designs, especially modern Darkseid, he kind of resembles Apocalypse. For me, I'm much more biased towards the more classic design of this character, but I don't mind this. This is pretty cool. In terms of his articulation, this guy's head rotates, and it doesn't want to rotate all the way around, because if you look from the profile view, his body armor, the neck slant, or at least the neck armor slants at an angle. So when you try turning his head, it's going to hit this. It's not going to rotate all the way around. His arms rotate. The armor piece here is actually a separate piece. It looks like it's glued onto the upper arm. There is no articulation on the hands or the wrists or the forearms. There is no rotation, or there's no swivel at the chest or the waist. His legs just simply kick up and then they bend at the knee. That's it. So he looks pretty cool. Like I said, he's a big figure compared to everyone else. You really feel like you're getting your money's worth with this guy. I just feel bad that, like, when I go to my local Targets, this is the figure that's selling the least. There's so many Darkseids just sitting on the pegs. At first, when the toy line first came out, I remember the first week, the only figures I saw were John Stewart and Darkseid. And then a few weeks later, when they restocked, they started getting in more Batmans and more Supermans. But now, at least in my area, I'm at the point where these guys are sitting on the shelves. And then the hard figures that are difficult to find are these two. These are Wave 2. Now, this figure, I said it before in its review, I love this figure. I hate the Batman Who Laughs. I can't stand the character. I hate anything that has to do with, like, death metal Batman and the multiverse. But this figure is amazing. The only downside with this figure is that aesthetically, it doesn't feel like a throwback figure. And I kind of feel like that with this figure here. This figure doesn't feel as retro as these other figures. Like Batman, some of these figures, they're very generic. They don't have any texture to their uniforms. They're very bare minimum on their details. This guy takes it to a completely different level. He's like super detailed. So he's almost too detailed for this line. And I kind of feel like this guy is bordering that. I feel like he has just a little bit too much detailing on him. And he doesn't feel so much like a retro figure as the other ones do. This guy feels like a figure from like the late 90s, early 2000s. Whereas these guys here feel like, mid to late 80s. And I think that's kind of the spirit of the Superpowers line. You really want to capture that, that mid 80s action figure. And to some extent, late 80s, early 90s, because, that was kind of what we saw with the Kenner stuff, like with this Batman figure here. But for me, it seems like this figure kind of exceeds the retro limit. It's like well beyond being retro. This guy's like modern. This guy feels semi-modern. He feels like it's a little bit more like late 90s, early 2000s. I know I'm sounding crazy and I'm being a little bit nitpicky, but I think if you're doing a toy line based off nostalgia, I think you should make it feel as, as period specific as possible. Like, I think there's ways they could have dumbed down this guy's design just enough so he feels a little bit more retro. But that's not, necessarily a hit against this. It's really well worth the price. I just feel like aesthetically he doesn't feel like he's in the same time period as these other figures. But that's just me. I'm kind of an idiot. All right, so how do I rate this guy on a scale of 1 to 10? First thought, an 8. And that's mostly because, I think you're getting a great value with this guy. For like $9, you're getting a figure that's like twice the size of, these other ones. And it's a great villain to kick off the line. I think it's cool that they gave us a big heavy hitter. Literally, this is a big heavy hitter. Because I kind of feel like if they started off with like a Joker or Luthor, those figures are they're gonna be small just like these guys. But the fact that they gave us a big heavy villain and at this size, I think that's just awesome. Alright, so let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So, until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.